All right, so before I move on, something really important to note when you're naming angles is if you have an angle that looks like this one in the corner, where D is a vertex of three different rays, then you have two possible different angles. So you can no longer use the first way of naming. Cannot name it angle D. And that's because there are there are actually three different angle Ds. So one possible angle D is EDF, a second possible angle D is FDG, and a third possible angle D is this one that goes across the whole entire way, and it's EDG. Okay, because there are three different angles there, you can no longer name it angle D. You have to use method 2 or method 3. Okay. All right. I'm going to start a new page. So make sure that you pause this so that you can get that example in. This is very important. Okay, so let's talk about measuring angles. The protractor postulate is basically just like the ruler postulate, which we learned about for line segments. And all it really says is that an angle can be measured with a protractor. As a reminder, a protractor is one of those things that looks like a half sun. And it looks like this, and it's got like a little dot here, and then it's got a bunch of numbers along the outside. Okay, if we were in class, this is a bad protractor. If we were in class, I would give you all protractors, but because we aren't in class, you do not get your protractors this year. I am sorry. If you would like to have them, then just see me sometime next year or when we go back to school, and I will make sure that you get one. Okay, so basically, an angle can be measured with a protractor. So there are a few classifications of angles, and we're going to talk about those. There are 4, so I'm going to actually draw a really quick table. Okay, and it's basically just 4 boxes, okay? So the first type of angle is an acute angle. Acute. And that means that it is measure is less than 90 degrees, okay? Then we have a right angle, and it is a right angle, and its measure is equal to 90 degrees. Okay, the thing about the right measure is it has to have this little box in the corner to indicate that it's a right angle. Okay, all right, and then we've got an obtuse angle, obtuse, and its measure is, you guessed it, greater than 90 degrees. And then we have a straight angle, which is basically just a line, right? Or 2 opposite rays. This is a straight angle, and the measure of a straight angle is always 180. Okay, so angles are measured in what's called degrees, and it basically just tells us how far around the unit circle it would go, because the unit circle is measured as 360 degrees. So if you have half of a unit circle, like if my angle is a straight angle, then I could draw half of a unit circle around it, and that's 180 degrees, which is half of a unit circle. With a right angle, I've got a quarter of a circle, which is 90 degrees, which is how we know that those are measured like that. And we just, we broke it up like that because they're the most common types of angles, and this way we have a name for each type of angle. Okay. Because I don't have a protractor, but the worksheets will, I'm going to have you guys do some examples on that in the practice. But here is, what if we have congruent angles? Congruent angles. Okay. So for congruent side lengths or congruent segments, they're marked with like little lines. But if I have congruent angles, like this one and this one, I'm going to call this one A and this one B. And I'm going to say angle A is congruent to angle B. Then in order to mark that they're congruent, I'm going to put some little dashes in the middle. So if I put one line here, then I put one line here, and that signifies that these are congruent to each other. You can mark congruent angles with 2 lines if you want. Sometimes they're marked with a 3rd line. Sometimes they're marked with a little slash in the middle. Okay, these are all ways to mark 2 angles